In 2006, Superman Returns hit theaters to mediocre reviews from critics and mostly meh reactions from audiences. The movie got a lot of things right, from casting Brandon Routh as Superman to providing the best action sequence out of any Superman film thus far. Most of the arrows pointed towards a sequel, especially with Christopher Nolan getting the green light to deliver a follow-up to Batman Begins. But there was never a sequel. Why? Director Bryan Singer wanted Returns to be nostalgic and romantic, which he admits may not have been what summer moviegoers were expecting. Singer wanted to capture the attention of female audiences who were, quote, lining up for films such as The Devil Wears Prada, but not so much for superhero blockbusters.
Alright everyone, gird your loins!
An admirable goal for the time, especially when the majority of superhero movies catered to a male audience. He wanted to make a movie that harkened back to the original Richard Donner Superman, but Singer obviously got caught up in his nostalgia, having Routh repeat lines directly from the original.
Well, I certainly hope this little incident hasn't put you off flying, miss. Statistically speaking, of course, it's still the safest way to travel.
Well, I hope this experience hasn't put any of you off flying. Statistically speaking, it's still the safest way to travel.
In essence, Returns suffered an identity crisis, unable to decide if it wanted to be a romantic remake or a new take on the franchise. Singer also admits that the movie was heavy in religious imagery. I don't fault Singer for placing so much religious imagery in his film, from the kryptonite shard being jabbed into Superman's side by Lex Luthor, similar to what happened to Christ on the cross, to Superman falling back to Earth in crucifix fashion. Singer himself states that he found the myth of Christ compelling and he wanted to do his own take on it, which is heavy subject matter for a summer film. The film was written off as a box office failure, but that point can be argued. The film earned $200 million domestic in the United States and $391 million worldwide. It's considered a failure because of its $270 million budget, of which $70 million was tacked on from a decade's worth of aborted Superman reboots. In that sense, the movie is not a total box office failure. Finally, a major issue audiences had with the film was the introduction of Jason Lane, Lois Lane and Superman's son. This painted the whole movie with a deadbeat dad brush. However, Jason Lane was said to have a special role in one mythical idea for the sequel to Superman Returns, in which Supes was supposed to take on Brainiac. In the final act of the planned sequel, Superman has Brainiac on the brink of defeat, but the clever computer downloads his consciousness into the only other Kryptonian on Earth, Jason Lane. Superman now has to fight and kill his own son in order to save the world, and you thought 2013's Man of Steel was dark. All in all, Superman Returns was a decent film with an identity crisis released at the wrong time. If it was released today, I think it would have done extremely well given the overblown action spectacles that make up the majority of today's superhero films. It's unfortunate because Brandon Routh is still a better Superman than Mr. Cavill, and I'm sure audiences would have loved to see him reclaim the role of the character in a sequel, but some roles are just not meant to be. Besides, Routh would never have been Todd Igram if he reprised the role of Superman.
Thanks, Tool.